Hi everybody, I'm back with another video, and this video is going to be analyzing the pre-match between Chelsea and Atletico Madrid in the Champions League game tomorrow, and I will be analyzing that game post-match as well. This is just to see if there is potential for Chelsea to get a little bit of a reality check in recent times when playing against a bigger club in a bigger competition where experience goes a long way, as well as securing some of the moments where Chelsea has struggled, particularly when playing in the final third. As Thomas Tuchel has said, Chelsea has been very good in the first 80 meters, but around goal they have struggled, and it just happens that Atletico Madrid is very good defensively and can secure these positions where Chelsea haven't been so good, and they can attack and transition very quickly. So the biggest question first is the structure that Atletico Madrid will use to control players like Werner, Mount, Conte, and Kovacic, all in their midfield shape of Chelsea, and how Diego Simeone will look to neutralize this, first by preventing access to the pivots, who will most likely be Kovacic and Conte, through the absence of Jorginho, and this pairing between Kovacic and Conte might actually be beneficial for Chelsea, as Conte isn't as stable on the ball in the role that Tuchel has Jorginho and Conte playing, but Conte is much better in transition and defensively. So this is an area to look for and see how Conte does in this role, and especially in transitions, and making sure that the Atletico Madrid counterattack isn't as dangerous as it might have been with a liability like Jorginho in this role. So this is the main shape of the advanced players between the lines and in the platform position for Chelsea that Atletico Madrid will have to be concerned about. And the one big question is the back four or back five that Atletico Madrid will play with. And in some regards, I think a back four with narrow fullbacks will suit them better, or even playing with asymmetry, because as we see, they'll have a numerical superiority around Giroud, which will allow them to have more flexibility when jumping into the midfield, and it will allow them to span across the half spaces where the threat between the lines becomes, and not just the threat between the lines, but also the runs that Werner likes to make in behind can be covered much better with a narrow fullback rather than playing three central defenders against these narrow front three. It might cause problems defending them with numerical equality in some situations rather than going with a back four. So the back four, I predict, will allow Atletico Madrid to maintain numerical superiority against the Chelsea front three, and the front three being Werner, Giroud, and Mount, as I have them here. But of course, the lineups aren't out yet, so this might change. And then with Marcus Alonso and either James or Callum Hudson-Odoi, it's interesting who he's going to pick with after the substitution of Callum Hudson-Odoi. After he was substituted after already coming on as a substitute, so it would be a big boost of confidence if Tuchel sticks with Callum Hudson-Odoi as he has shown in previous matches. But in this game, I suspect he'll just go with Reece James because of the work rate, athleticism, and the abilities that Reece James has in transition versus Callum Hudson-Odoi. And so now we can look at how Atletico Madrid will press. So we suspect that they'll be well equipped in each third of the field, and it just goes to see where the ball is going to be forced and how they're going to take this advantage away. So in one regard, they might take away the pivots, allow Chelsea to play into the half space, and then look to press from here via cover shadow, blocking the holding midfielders, dual roles to create the circulation or prevent the circulation from happening via this positioning from João Felix. And then from here, we can have our midfielders shift. Correa would then use his cover shadow to block Marcus Alonso, and Koke would be about 10 to 12 yards more inside and deeper than Correa, who's then pressing from out to in. Saul would then cover the 10 position or the entry ball into Giroud, with Carrasco shifting across and maintaining his compactness. And then what this would do is it would create a high level of vertical compactness from Atletico Madrid to deny any diagonal balls between the lines for Chelsea and put play into a position of isolation when Chelsea's in possession. But this is just one variation that can be used and might not be used. They might go with a more stable approach by not using the cover shadows to isolate the wide areas. They may even go with a forward up front and press actually into the wide areas, allowing them to then press, slide over in a more compact and secure way, pressing in the wide areas to look to win the ball in a less dense area to then attack through. But the reason I said looking to win the ball in the central area, using the cover shadow to block the wing back, is simply because with Atletico Madrid's pressing ability, them winning the ball in the half space would be much more advantageous for them going forward to attack the goal. But this is just an idea on how Atletico Madrid can approach the game. But either way their approach, they'll be very high in vertical and horizontal compactness, very well structured, and they will use some sort of cover shadow and dual roles within the side. And what Diego Simeone does and how he trains his team is he splits the field one more division vertically down the center of the field to just maintain this high level of compactness through the thirds of the field and through the 5 vertical corridors, splitting the central area in 2 just to give the players an added reference point when they are shifting. So no matter what formation they play or who plays in these structures, and really just the base on which they carry out the concepts, they'll have a high level of horizontal compactness. We can look for the numerical superiority in the first line of defense, or in their last line of defense, I should say, with their central defenders and their fullbacks. Then we can look at some sort of staggering in the midfield. And this staggering will simply be to create access on multiple lines. So it may be through the wide players, or also commonly it may be through the midfielders, the central midfielders, and just creating this staggering just to create access points on multiple lines of the field. But at the base, we'll start with the wide midfielders. So we have compactness in each line of defense in their team, and we have staggering in the midfield, as well as dual roles in the first line of defense through their cover shadows, creating positional superiority. And then the biggest thing that will decide the game most likely, as I expect Atletico Madrid, if they play well, to keep a clean sheet because of a struggling Chelsea offensively just a little bit. When they win the ball, if they can attack through these narrow spaces, and depending on how Chelsea's counter press is, they can seriously take advantage of progressing vertically right away and getting it into spaces in behind and spaces between the double pivot and the back 3, and then using this as a platform to advance beyond there. But this will certainly be the biggest test of Chelsea so far under Thomas Tuchel, and the things that they have been struggling with, like scoring goals and creating the half chances into goal scoring opportunities, will be the biggest test for them, and how they can break down an Atletico Madrid team that's very well versed and in good form at the moment, at top of the La Liga. So, and they're very good in transition with quality players, which will put the transition moments of Chelsea in the highest stress they've been through under Thomas Tuchel, and it could be their first defeat under Thomas Tuchel. Could be a tight affair, but I do think that either Chelsea will just skate by with a draw, a 0-0 draw if they can hold a clean sheet, or they will lose the game. And that's just my prediction. I could be wrong. And if you guys have different ideas on how you think they're going to play, please drop in the comments below. Like and subscribe to the channel. I love hearing from everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.